What's up, Ronin Renegades, and welcome back. I am Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB Gameplay, and today I've got a Dorinthea game for you. For anyone who's new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will talk through turn cycles and give my thought process for the lines I would take, then compare that to what I did at the time this game was recorded. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns, with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to take a look at the list that I'm playing here, or try it for yourself on Talishar, a FaB deck link is available in the video description below. And while you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you daily FaB gameplay Discord access. Your name will show up in every DFG video. You could get bonus content every week, and there are even more great benefits to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can't afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. We win the die roll, and we are going to choose to go second. That already is a 20% increase to our win rate against Dorinthea. Having the ability to block out her entire first turn is huge in making sure that the Dawnblade does not get +1 counters, and is really setting us off to a good start. As far as sideboarding goes, I like Momentum Kodachi in this matchup. Similar to Bravo, Dori is going to give us armor as opposed to blocking from hand, but at a certain point, she no longer has armor available. Crown of Providence is a one-time use. Her Courage of Bladehold is effectively a one-time use, and if she does block with it a second time, we might as well have gotten a card from her hand. Her Bolters only block for 1, and her Braveforge Bracers do block for 3 over 2 links, similar to her Iron Tongue Verses. But that's really the best she's got. Outside of that, she's giving us cards from hand, and if Dorinthea does not have cards from hand, then she is not threatening as much damage on her turn. Doing the math to determine her biggest damage play gets a lot easier, and that big damage becomes smaller, and it becomes a lot easier for us to win. So we are going to keep Kodachi momentum here. As far as the deck itself, we are only going to board out our double strikes and board in our sink blows. Double strike is a great card in Kodachi momentum. It is great for threatening mask momentum triggers, but sink below is critical against Dorinthea. Having the defense reaction to play around a lot of Dorinthea's attack reactions, especially at instant speed, is huge. It greatly affects the math that we need to do on Dorinthea's turn, and it is one of the most effective ways we have at resetting the Dawnblade if it has gotten too large. So while Double Strike is a great card to have, it is probably the least effective card in our deck, and it needs to go to make room for Sink Below. Our game plan here is to fire off a big Art of War. We want to threaten mask triggers, especially multiple mask triggers in a turn if we can. So Dori is effectively Bravo, but with less disruption, more damage, and we get to play Art of War. As far as Dorinthea's game plan, she is trying to put +1 counters on the Dawnblade. Once the Dawnblade gets big enough, FaB can no longer effectively block it. Dorinthea can snowball the game from there. So then our second objective in this game, outside of winning, is to control the Dawnblade. And we do that in one of two ways. We either block the Dawnblade's first attack, so that it loses all of its +1 counters, or we pressure Dorinthea to the point where she needs to give us all of the cards in her hand so that she can no longer pay to attack with the Dawnblade, at which point the counters fall off of the Dawnblade. Dawnblade management is huge in this matchup. I personally love this matchup. I think doing the math for Dorinthea is a lot of fun. I think plotting the worst case scenario and how we can play around it is very challenging and very intriguing. And I think that it is a very variable matchup. Ideally, we are taking counters off of the Dawnblade. We're making sure it never gets too big. But sometimes Dorinthea plays Glistening Steelblade, Steelblade Supremacy, and our hand is 3 2-blocks and an Art of War. And now we're racing, because now we can't stop the Dawnblade from growing, and we need to drastically alter our plan and hope to catch Dory with a bad hand for blocking or a hand she would rather attack with, and our Art of War really pops off. So while the game plan here is simple in theory, send a big attack, reset the Dawnblade, send a big attack, reset the Dawnblade, sometimes it just doesn't work that way, and we have to really alter what we're doing. So we'll jump into the game, we'll see how this one is going to shake out, and we'll talk about what we could maybe do better in the future. We draw into a hand that does not block well. Dorinthea draws into a Glistening Steelblade. So with the Dawnblade coming for 3, the best case scenario for Dorinthea and the worst case scenario for us would be Ironsong Response in hand, as well as a Singing Steelblade to find an Ironsong Response. That's 10 total damage. We need to fire off a defensive Art of War now, because if we only block for 7, there are a lot of options available to Dorinthea to get the Dawnblade to at least 8 power. If this Dawnblade hits us, it gets a counter. Dorinthea could then, depending on how she got there, either pitch from hand to attack with the Dawnblade again, or break Courage of Bladehold to attack with the Dawnblade, which in theory is good value for us. Dorinthea didn't get block from her Courage, but the Dawnblade now has 3 counters on it, and we're on turn 2. We have to Art of War here and hope to draw into a better defensive hand. We draw into 2 more 2-blocks, but with all of our attacks having +1 defense, 10 is going to be enough. Dorinthea does have the Singing Steelblade, and she's going to Steelblade into a Twinning Blade. So while we are going to get hit with the Dawnblade, we cannot effectively block it. It is going to get a counter. It's just 1 counter as opposed to 3. We can deal with a 4-power Dawnblade on turn 2. We cannot deal with a 6-power Dawnblade. Now, Dorinthea does have the option here to break Bolters and Courage to get this Dawnblade another attack and potentially get it more counters. If that were to happen, I think we would also give Dorinthea equipment. We would block with Furnace and Shuko to prevent it from growing any larger. Losing the Shuko this early would be tragic, but we are at least getting equipment from Dorinthea, and we're preventing the Dawnblade from growing. She chooses not to, so we aren't given the option, but I think that if Dorinthea was going to use armor this early, we would want to do so as well. The hand we draw into is pretty bad, honestly. Art of War belongs in the arsenal, as does Sink Below, and we don't want to keep a Sink Below with an Art of War if we can avoid it. Sink Below effectively is -1 card in our hand with an Art of War. 4-card Art of War is a lot less threatening than 5-card Art of War, so we're just going to throw the Art of War now. Our alternative is Kodachi Blaze Headlong. The Blaze Headlong doesn't have Go again, so Dory doesn't really even need to block it. We could Blind Snap, which I don't love. We could pitch the Sink Below to Kodachi, then pitch the Warmongers to Kodachi and Blaze Headlong. we could play this Warmonger's Diplomacy, which is very strong against Dorinthea. Warmonger's Diplomacy is a clutch card against Dory because she cannot Glistening Steelblade, then Dawnblade, or Steelblade Supremacy, then Dawnblade. But even then, we're stuck with an Art of War and a Sink Below, and we know that one of the cards in our hand isn't a blue to pay for the Art of War. So while we have 4 very good cards in our hand, they are not good together. Let's just fire off this Art of War and see what happens. Pitch Warmongers, Banish Blaze. Oh, I'm doing this. Okay. I think that's fine. Am I going to Kodachi Pitch Blaze? Yep. Kodachi Pitch Blaze, play Warmongers. This is fine. Obviously, it is significantly less damage, but we are inhibiting Dory's ability to easily grow the Dawnblade. Without something like a run-through, she can't give the Dawnblade go again unless she wants to break Refraction Bolters. We could reset the Dawnblade here if we wanted to. That would definitely put us at risk of attack reactions, which Dory is free to play under the effects of war. So we're just going to choose not to block. We'll see if Dory wants to break the bolters without having blocked with them first. She chooses to. So the Dawnblade is going to grow to 5 if we allow it to hit. If we didn't block it the first time, we certainly aren't going to do so now. Dawnblade at 2 counters is about as much as we would be comfortable with the Dawnblade growing. The Dawnblade with a 3rd counter becomes very difficult to deal with. It makes the math a lot harder. So we are just going to throw a 5-card Art of War and hope that it's enough to get Dory to block, put us in a position to block the Dawnblade. We'll just see what happens. So, considering that we are on Mask of Momentum, not Pouncing Links, and that these games tend to run a bit longer than average, I don't love having a finisher in my hand now. I would rather try to save my Snapdragon Scalers. Starting with the Art of War here just lets us craft our hand knowing what we are going to see. I think that's fine. So at this point, with a blue in hand, we have 4 resources available. CNC costs 2, Bittering Thorns cost 1. We can throw a Kodachi in here as well. So with all of that considered, I like leading with Kodachi. Kodachi, Bittering Thorns, Rising Resentment, to me is the best line. Then we attack with CNC. This works as well. What this is going to let us do is Rising Resentment, then Kodachi, then CNC. The CNC, in addition to having the CNC effect, is also a Mask of Momentum trigger. Dory here, pitching a Shunt to play a Shunt. Bad hand for Dory for sure. We are going to punish that with a 7-power Command and Conquer because Dory has more life than we do. The Arcanite Skullcap only blocked for 1, not 2. So she could not give us a card from hand and 2 pieces of armor to stop the CNC. So we are going to get the Arsenal. We are 100% blocking this Dawnblade. This is the easiest Dawnblade reset of my life. Considering what's in our hand, we can block probably with the Lava Burst. Lava Burst and Furnace resets the Dawnblade. On our turn, we can Kodachi Snatch. What I actually like even more than that, having just said that, is blocking with Lava Burst and Lava Vein Loyalty. We block for 6, then on our turn, we attack with Snatch. Dory most likely blocks the Snatch, afraid that we would Snapdragon, then keep going. We get to Arsenal a 4-power Blaze Headlong, and see what our next 5-card hand looks like. Dawnblade is reset, so at this point we are much happier to just race, to not block Dory, and see what we can make happen. Spoils of War and Steelblade Supremacy leaves this a 7-power Dawnblade with Go Again that will draw a card for Dory if it hits. We cannot let it hit. So how we will block this is E-Strike, Mounting Anger, Furnace. That covers 7. Dory's turn ends. On our turn, we will play Warmonger's Diplomacy to really inhibit the power of Dory's next turn. Make sure that we don't need to block anything before our Art of War. Then we'll fire off an Art of War. The two of us choose War. Dory very likely just attacking the Dawnblade. We won't block. Dory has no reaction, so this is really the power of Warmongers, and this is why a lot of players think that Warmongers is a bad card for the game overall. It's randomly a silver bullet against certain heroes. That was a 4-card, 3 damage turn for Dorinthea. That is embarrassing. And Dory was not in a great spot when Warmongers was released. It isn't like she needed to be reined in, Azalea didn't need to be reined in, Viserai didn't need to be reined in. Warmongers just randomly hoses these heroes whose biggest turns require non-attack and attacks in the same turn. It works great for Ninja. It's a great card for us and for Katsu, who really don't run non-attack actions in our deck, but it still just feels a little gross to do it. As far as our turn here, we have our blue, we have our Art of War, we're all set. Let's Kadachi, Ronin, Renegade. The reason to do that, rather than lead with the Ronin, then Kadachi, then Blaze Headlong, is Ronin is our only legal target for Ancestral Empowerment. Blaze Headlong is pure Draconic, we cannot empower a Blaze Headlong. Dory lets the attack go unblocked. We are going to Ancestral Empowerment. We are hoping that she has the Sink Below, which is going to let us Art of War over the top. Or not. It's interesting. I think it makes sense because of this Lava Burst. We can Blaze Headlong, use our floating resource to pick up and play Phoenix Flame, then Lava Burst for 6 with our Shuko trigger. Playing the Art of War here, rather than arsenaling it for our next turn, would require it to really be worth more than 7 points of damage. And I agree with my past self here because I don't see that happening. We would have 0 floating resources and 2 Draconic links, so it's very unlikely that we would be able to get more than 7 damage out of the remaining 2 cards in our hand. So this is great. We're threatening 11. This Lava Burst is a mask trigger, and with another card in our hand, Dory doesn't know that this Art of War is here. She might be inclined to put 2 cards in front of this Lava Burst, thinking that we might snap it. Instead, we get Courage and a Sink Below. So this is great. This was really excellent decision making for me in the past, and I'm happy to see that I did it. Dory draws into a real clunker here. Dawnblade for 3 with Go Again and Piercing 1, and she broke the Courage to do it. So what can we put Dory on for not wanting to pitch to the Dawnblade and having no resources available? This is the easiest Iron Song response I've ever seen. There are a few lines we could take here to play around it if we wanted to make sure this Dawnblade doesn't connect. We could block with Furnace and Shuko. That is 3 damage. None of it came from hand, so the reprise effect of response is turned off. But what I'm really more inclined to do here is just take 6 and let the Dawnblade get a counter. We have a Sink Below available to put into Arsenal. We are at 23 right now. This is fine. We'll go to 20. We'll throw effectively a 4-card Art of War. That's just kind of enough. We're in a great spot in this game. Leading with the Snatch. I like it, and the reason I like it is Dori has a sink below left in deck. That's what I was just checking for. And because she is ahead on life, her Skull Cap only blocks for 1. So the really most effective line for Dori to take here is to block the Snatch for 4, which is going to let us Art of War over the top of it. We will draw our 2 cards from Art of War. We will draw a 3rd card from Snatch. Our Mask of Momentum is live, so we get to follow this with Kodachi for 1, Bittering Thorns for 5, E-Strike for 8, Arsenal Sink Below. We're in a great position in this game. Dori even letting the Mask of Momentum trigger is just an extra 4 points of damage for us, which is great. Extra 5 points of damage even with Bittering Thorns, so things are really going very well for us. Choosing to Kodachi here. I like this line. I'm really crushing it in the past. What this lets us do is present lethal. So Dori letting Bittering Thorns hits makes me think that she has a very strong 4-card hand. Now we of course would have had a Sink Below in our arsenal and 5 armor block available. We could deal with a strong 4-card hand. But what E-Striking for 8 here does is it makes Dori block. Dori has to block with something. So she gives us a Singing Steel Blade, which at worst is 4 damage if it finds Iron Song response. At most could be even more than that with a rout effect or an overpower effect. Instead, Dori goes to 3. The offensive power of her turn really plummets. We're in a great position to kill her, as with her Skull Cap, she's at an effective 4. We very likely just win this game. Dawnblade for 6, with what we assume is Iron Song response in Arsenal, is 9 points of damage. With what we have, covering 9 points of damage would take all of our armor and 2 cards from our hand, or all of the cards from our hand. Let's just block 9 from hand. The situation here really hasn't changed, where Dorinthea has a dead card in her arsenal as long as we either don't block from hand or always block more than 3 that the Dawnblade is currently attacking for. We're also in an even better position next turn because we reset the Dawnblade. If we block 9 here and we are correct that Dori has response in arsenal, then she can't keep the Dawnblade active. Now, of course, the other line we could take, again, past me, knocking it out of the park. Steelblade Supremacy doesn't get go again. So the most that Dawnblade attacks for is 9, and then Dori's turn ends. Meanwhile, what we get to do is attack with Kodachi, Ronin, Renegade, Rising Resentment, Snatch. So we're threatening 12. Dori has to give us 3 cards from hand and armor to stop that, or 4 cards from hand and Dawnblade resets. So really, past me is nailing this. I do think that blocking 9 there would have been perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with that. It is certainly the safer line. We stay at 20 with 5 armor available, and we draw into a hand that still kills Dori from 3. So we would have been in a good spot either way. I don't think one line was significantly better than the other, but I certainly should have mentioned that the 6-power Dawnblade didn't have go again. Instead, we put Dori to 1. We arsenal a Ravenous Rabble. We are still playing around Iron Song response in Dori's arsenal. We have a Sink Below. We can play out this hand. Dori is at 1. We are going to block this Dawnblade with all of our armor, which covers the 5 points of damage. And with this Iron Song response still not having its reprise effect active, Dory could play it just to clear the arsenal, but it doesn't do anything. Choosing instead to keep the furnace and sink bellowing up to 8, which does let Dory get value out of the reprise effect, but does not let Dory get to 9 points of damage. Ironsong Response is an incredible card for Dory. 0 cost for 3 damage at reaction speed. But if you never block from hand, or if you always overblock by 3, Dory cannot get value out of it. And it has been in Dory's arsenal for 4 turns now? That's the counterplay to Ironsong Response. And to really any reprise effect, is just never block from hand. As far as sequencing here, it doesn't particularly matter. We are going to get to Brand, Kadachi, Rising Resentment, Phoenix Flame, Ravenous Rabble. We certainly go wide enough that Dory could not block all of our damage. It is unlikely that she is playing a Sigil of Solace that would give her more life. We can very strongly suspect now, if not know with 100% certainty, that this is not a defense reaction in her arsenal. So we are just going to pick up the win. This was a very good game on our side of the board for a number of reasons. We drew excellently timed Warmong's Diplomacies. Our Art of Wars always hit. But I wanted to show this game because I think it's always worth showing Dorinthea math and knowing, okay, based on the worst case scenario, this is how we need to block, or based on what we suspect is a reprise effect, here's how we aren't going to block from hand and are instead going to either race or block with armor. Dorinthea can be scary, and if you let the Dawnblade grow to the point where the math changes, it hits breakpoints that it wasn't hitting before, or you just know that you can't stop it without 4 3 blocks and a sink below, you'll lose the game. If Dory gets the Dawnblade to a large enough size that now Steelblade Supremacy is unblockable, Glistening Steelblade is unblockable, you'll lose. But if you manage the Dawnblade appropriately leading up to that, utilizing your blocks from hand, utilizing your knowledge of reprise effects, utilizing well-timed sink belows or Warmong's Diplomacies, you will easily win Dorinthea games. Warmong's Diplomacy is so strong against her in a way that it makes me agree, this card probably needs a ban or a restriction, but while it isn't banned or restricted, absolutely use it to abuse your warrior and runeblade opponents. I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, hit that like button. My comments are always open for any questions or feedback, and I will be back later, after this weekend, after the Battle Hardened, with more daily FaB gameplay. Wish me luck. I hope that I can walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard to show off to all of you, but either way, it's all good content, and if I'm learning, I'm not losing. So, until next week, have a good one, take care.